I can't wait to talk about it. Well, what am I saying? Is this our last time we'll get to talk?
Let's talk about it.
Okay,
Come
let's do it because this is our last chance to talk before the championship game. So let's do it. But first, we were just getting into the two. I'm sure you and Danny were all over this today. The two stories that came out of the AFCA coaches meeting.
Yes.
Number one, the portal window.
Yes.
Do you like the idea of it being a 10-day window in January and dropping the spring window?
No, Plank. I don't like it. I freaking love it, man. Are you kidding me? This is. I hope this gets pushed through. Now it's not a done deal yet. It's a recommendation that got complete and total support. It was a unanimous vote by the coaches, but now I believe it goes to the NCAA Oversight Committee, and ultimately the NCAA Division I Council has to give final approval. So it's not a guarantee this is going to happen, but this should happen. This makes all the sense in the world, guys. I mean, I don't know if this doesn't fix all the issues, but it cleans a lot of stuff up, man. You know, I mean, like my big thing is like, can we finish a season before we start another season? Because let's be honest, when the transfer portal opens, a new season begins. For a lot of these players, a lot of these teams, even these coaches, though they're still focused on trying to coach a bowl game or whatever, they're also focused on the next season. And though I know that this portal from the 2nd of January to the 12th, still technically you're going to have playoff teams still playing, so that season is still going on. I would have been okay if they would have pushed it even a little further back. But I'm good with this. This makes total sense to me. You'll still have guys that opt out of playing in bowl games to get ready for the NFL draft, though I thought we saw a lot of players, at least in the games I did, even though they're getting ready for they're sticking around. I think that's coming back in vogue. But what I also saw, we saw Marshall have to, not even play in their bowl game because so many players entered the portal. In the game that I had, Duke and Ole Miss, you had Malik Murphy enter the transfer portal, and he was already committed to Oregon State. And Duke had their new quarterback in Darren Mensah coming from Tulane, but he wasn't eligible to play yet. So you play a guy who had 3 pass attempts all season. That doesn't make sense. At least with this, with the portal opening later, it should help ensure that those bowls from a portal perspective are much more whole and much more sound, that we can focus on those. And I think also just for coaches in that insane December calendar. I mean, this past year, in the same week, we had National Signing Day and the portal opening within days of each other. How does that even make sense?
Yeah.
So I love it, and I also love that there's not one in the spring. I have not been an advocate of a spring portal window. I'm just not. Now, we'll see again. Maybe the Oversight Committee comes back and says, the NCAA Division I Council says, nope, we still have to give them an opportunity in the springtime. But, that's what's another thing that's so hard, I think, for staffs, even for fans. You don't even know throughout spring what your roster is going to look like because players can still transfer post-spring. And now that can be a negative and it can be a positive. So I get this side that some people say, well, we may need to add something. Now we see what we need in spring. I think this makes a ton of sense. I hope it gets pushed through. I don't like the proposal. I love it. And I think this is one of the smarter things that I've seen come across as it relates to the portal, really since we've been talking about all this the last several years.
Do
you agree with that or no? Do you disagree?
No, I agree 100%. I like you said, I don't just like it, I love it. I think there is nothing that makes less sense to me. And Josh, jump in if you disagree. I mean, we spent a little time on it before you jumped on with us. But there has never been anything that's made less sense to me, Dusty, than having your playoffs going on, right, or your postseason, however you want to phrase it, and free agency is taking place right in the middle of it.
That's right.
I mean, could you imagine in the NFL right now if I'm trying to think, if while the playoffs are going on, Justin Fields has to leave the Steelers because he signed a deal with the Cowboys or the Raiders or something? It would. I mean, what are we even doing whenever that's the norm in this sport over the last few years? Faking injuries was the other thing the AFCA talked about. I like Billy Napier's point where he's like, why don't we just stop doing it? He's like, why don't we just stop doing it? But we have questions, and as someone who played the game and now analyzes it top to bottom, front to back, is it fair to say if a guy goes down and play stops, then he's off the field for the rest of the drive? I mean, is that a fix here, or is this another thing that is a kind of a short-term solution?
First of all, I agree with Billy Napier. I hate to even have to discuss this. I really do, because, what's unfortunate is somebody's going to get injured and it not be that severe, but they've got to be down, and now potentially you penalize that because so many people have taken advantage of the system. And we're in this spot now with the faking or feigning of injuries that's just ridiculous. And you can't really throw a flag on it, right? Because it's like, how in the moment is a referee supposed to, give a judgment? Is this a legitimate injury, or is this just stall tactics and not allowing the offense to go fast, right? Like, so it's a very peculiar place to be. We know that the SEC, Greg Sankey, he implemented the fine policy, and then I think if a third strike, I think it was even potentially suspension of a coach. We obviously haven't gotten to that point, but we know it's an issue in college football. It's an issue for teams. It's an issue for fans. It's an issue, I think, even for television. Just slows the game down and doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'd be lying if I didn't say that I am supportive of whatever we need to do to get this out of college football. It's like enough's enough. But it's kind of like, it's ridiculous to even have to do something, right? Like faking injuries? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is just, it feels a bit ridiculous, but this is a reality. I actually think, I believe the proposal, and I've heard multiple coaches come on my show say this. I've even had coaches in coaches' meetings say this as well. So I know this won't be universal. There will be some coaches that disagree with this, but I've heard enough tell me that this is what they think should happen. Is the proposal that I saw, and correct me where I'm wrong, is that if a player goes down, they're sidelined for the rest of that drive unless they use a timeout to get that player essentially reinstated. And I got to be honest, like, I know it's not perfect, but I think it's better than doing nothing. Will that get pushed through? I don't know. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that push back. For instance, you get a quarterback that gets the wind knocked out of him, and he goes down, and now he's got to come out, and he's got to come out for the rest of the series, or you burn a timeout. What if you've only got one timeout left, and what if it's the fourth quarter and there's 4 minutes left, and you've already burned all your timeouts, and you want to utilize your time? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just situations that I can already see are going to arise that you say, well, this doesn't make sense. Like, so I know it's not going to be perfect, but what's currently happening, I can't stand. It drives me crazy. I can only imagine, my gut would be that when Lehman is on the broadcast and he sees a player completely flop and fake an injury, as they look over to the sideline, they just take a knee and act hurt. I would imagine Sertetti about loses his mind because I know myself and a lot of people do as well. How do we get rid of this? I don't know, but I'm willing to try something and take steps to try to get it out of college football. So I think I would support what they're discussing here with, you have to sit out or use a timeout. But I get that it's not going to be perfect. And there's going to be situations where you say, this is stupid. It doesn't make sense. I'll tell you what's stupid. Players faking injuries. Just find a way to get that out of college football, and I'd be a lot happier.
This obviously, Dusty, would be a bit of a radical change for college football to enforce all of that. So what do you think, again, in the name of sort of radical changes, instead of just your typical 3 timeouts, you get a 4th timeout that you could use once at any point in the game to mitigate some of what you talked about? Quarterback gets the wind knocked out of him, et cetera, et cetera.
I'd be okay with that. Like, you get essentially It's a timeout that you can't use to stop, play on the field, but you would get that additional one to potentially reinsert a player into a game.
Right.
Look, I'd be open-minded to a lot of different discussions around this. It's because I recognize this is a complex problem and there's not an easy solution. So, again, I'd be willing to listen to that, Josh. I don't think that's a crazy assertion. I also just think that you kind of have to be willing to try things, see how it goes, and be willing to pivot and tweak or change that if indeed you go down that path and it's not perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that this is something that may take some figuring out along the way. Obviously, within a season, that rule stays intact, but I think it's something that you potentially look at the end of a season, really assess, how'd this go? Did this truly make it better? How many instances do we have where it was an issue and it didn't make sense? And really kind of vet it properly and see, okay, is this bettering the sport of college football? Okay, if we did a little differently, would that make it even better? I think that we're at that point with this, and personally, I'm just glad that there's some conversations being had to figure out, how we can get this right.
All right, Dusty Dvoracek is with us. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame and Ohio State championship game when we come back. But before we go to a break, can you take us through the importance now of these early, I say season, but I mean these early year workouts? I know Teddy talks about it a lot, Dusty. Back in the initial days of the rush, you guys would talk about it a lot. And now, Jerry Schmidt and Schmitty has his program. These guys have gone through it. It's a little different. There's been tweaks and there's been changes, but Monday was the official start for Team 131. And now we're going to see them get bigger, stronger, faster leading up to the spring, we hope. What, in your opinion, is the most important thing during this time to get where you need to be come August, September, and October?
Well, it's vital. I mean, the season has begun. Next season is here. And I think with so much roster turnover on a year in, year out basis, probably more important now than ever. I think that, the physical component is important, right? Bigger, faster, stronger, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. You need that aspect. But team building, camaraderie, leadership for a guy like John Mateer. John Mateer is going to add a lot as a passer, as a runner. You need him to be an alpha. You need him to be the leader of this team. And you want to talk about earning your teammates' respect? This is when you earn your teammates' respect. Winter conditioning, summer conditioning, when it's tough, when it's hard. That's when bonds are forged, man. Like, I know it's cliche and you hear people talk about it, but that stuff's real. And that's the stuff that you remember as much or more than the games themselves. And that's why, the offseason program with Schmitty or any of these strength coaches, it's to use a word from Coach Venables, it's paramount, man. Like, it is absolutely paramount to the overall identity of a football team, the makeup of a team. And I think, when you talk about accountability is such an important word and trait that players and teams have to have. Championship teams are accountable to one another. Well, making your times, finishing a drill, that's accountability. And it starts right now. Well, it's going on in winter conditioning. And I love it, man. Like, I love the off season. I think that it's under talked about and it's so important. But I think that what I'm talking about is so much more than did they get a tenth of a second faster on their 40? Are they 7 pounds? Are they 5 pounds heavier? Is their body fat decrease? Those are all great. Those results, I don't want to say that they don't matter, but to me, those pale in comparison to the other aspects that are so important about a team. And especially in a time, guys, when the aspect of team, the true aspect of team, and developing that bond is harder now than ever before. Like, you have to be very intentional about making that a reality within a team now with all that roster turnover, even with the NIL, with guys getting paid and what are they really here for? Like, that's when things come together. That's when leadership reveals itself, and that's when accountability and teams leaning on one another to finish, to get through things, really starts to happen. So it's probably a longer answer than you were hoping for, Planks. I know you probably had a break, but that's what's going on right now, and that's why this time is so important for so many of these guys, especially the new guys or the young guys that feel they can make that step and they're ready for their opportunity. Well, they start to earn that respect from their teammates right now throughout this process.
Hey, let's get a break. And when we come back, we want to talk more about that AFCA proposal. And Tim from Nebraska has, I think, the best text question of the day. We'll get it all next with Dusty Dvoracek live on The Ref.
This is your home for Sooner fans. The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Dusty, one of the, I guess you could say, unsung portions of the AFCA proposal was they actually have mixed in a 2-week dead period as well. So do you like that part of the proposal? And just from your conversations with coaches, do you get a sense, like, how crazy have December's been for head coaches with, you got signing day, you're trying to get ready for a bowl game or playoffs, and you got the transfer portal. How wild have December's been over the last couple of years?
It's been impossible for these coaches. I don't know how they do it. I got to be honest. Nobody wants to have a pity party for coaches outside of coaches and their wives and their families, because they know just how taxing it is. I know coaches are very well compensated, but I mean, you've got a lot of these guys are still. I mean, whether it's a championship game, a bowl game, a playoff game, whatever it is, you're still preparing a team to get ready. You're dealing with, a high school signing period, so you're recruiting your tail off right there to the very end to secure your recruits, and then potentially flip one or two along the way. And then along with that, portal opens. You got to be courting portal players. You got to be looking at their film, signing off on, if you want to bring them in, assessing your own roster, trying to get an idea of on your roster who's coming back, who's going. It's impossible. I mean, it's a nightmare. And I know because I talk to so many coaches across the country that will echo that. So any dead period that is added for these coaches, I'm in favor of. Okay? Let's give them a little bit of time to breathe, to be able to not have so much crammed into that 1 month of the year. And I don't know if you said it was just a couple of weeks or the entire month of December. I haven't seen exactly how long that dead period would be. Maybe it's after that early signing period through the rest of December. I'm not sure, but I think that would make a ton of sense. And I'm in favor of allowing that month to still be about the season and football best you possibly can.
This weekend, we get NFL playoffs, which we'll talk about in a bit. This is our last chance to talk to you before the championship game on Monday night. So what's your early vibes right now? How you feeling about Notre Dame, Ohio State?
I'll take Ohio State to win, but I think Notre Dame makes this interesting. I see a defensive football game, man. These are the two top scoring defenses in the country, and I think that Al Golden, he trusts that secondary immensely. I think there's going to be fabulous matchups with these wide receivers of Ohio State in the secondary. So that kind of jumps out first and foremost for me. Low scoring, defensive type of football game, which I think it needs to be for Notre Dame to either win or keep it close. I do not think Notre Dame in any way wants to get in some kind of shootout match, score for score with Ohio State. Riley Leonard is just such a key in this. Can Riley Leonard have the success that he had in the second half against Penn State against Ohio State? He made some big throws. I think one to the freshman running back, Aeneas Williams. They go empty. They get him outside. He runs a double move, a little slant and go, and he beats the backer, create that matchup, and he drops a dime over the shoulder. I think that's the first think it was a 36 or so yard pickup that kind of said, okay, they kind of got things going in that opening drive in the second half. And we know him as a runner. They've only lost one game, and in that game, it's the only game he didn't have at least 30 yards rushing. So, and personally, I think it needs to be probably closer to 50. Some designed quarterback run, some times where the guys don't just quite get open down the field and you just make a play. And we've seen Riley Leonard do that quite a bit throughout the course of the season. The issue for him is he's going against the number one defense in the country. And Jim Knowles has this squad absolutely dialed in and locked in. Notre Dame's down an offensive tackle. So it's interesting. Jagasaw was supposed to be the starting left tackle that took over for Joe Alt, who was a top 10 pick last year to the Chargers. And he tore his pec in training camp. And so already like this, Notre Dame dealing with injuries started taking place back in camp. Well, if you noticed the other night against Penn State, Notre Dame lost its left tackle, also lost its right guard. Well, the guy who came in at right guard was that Jagasaw character, and he played great, played 57 snaps. There's a chance he starts at tackle in this game for the first time all season. So how does that matchup look against whether it's JTT or Jack Sawyer? Pick your poison. Both these guys are fabulous coming off the edge. Are they able to hold up? Can Notre Dame deal with this attrition that they've had throughout the course of the year, or does it finally rear its ugly head against a really talented Ohio State team? I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be good, Plank, but I'd have to lean Ohio State. They've got in a game that's got two great defenses. I think they've got the better defense, the better personnel, and they've just got more firepower, more explosivity offensively. But I'm just hoping for a highly competitive game, and I can't wait to watch this on Monday night. And just too bad we couldn't get any brands in the game, I mean, Ohio State, Notre Dame, just hope somebody watches this thing.
Yeah, it should rate like crazy. It's going to be fun to see what the final numbers look like. Interesting text from Tim from Nebraska. Dusty, do you think Notre Dame should be in a conference? If not, should we eliminate conference championship games altogether?
I do think they should be at a conference. I wish they were. I don't blame them for not being in one. I blame the system for allowing it to happen. This could be real simple. If the college football playoff board, which I do believe is made up of the conference commissioners and the Notre Dame athletic director, if this board came together and they said, we're going to demand that all teams that are eligible for our playoff are in a conference. If you want to be eligible for the playoff, you got to be in a conference, period. Okay, Notre Dame would say, we got to get in a conference. That's not what they have currently. So I wish the system, it's like I don't put this on Notre Dame as much as I put it on the system that's in place and the other athletic directors. They hold the power. It's hard to look at Notre Dame and say you're doing something wrong. They get a king's ransom from NBC. They get a chunk from the ACC. They play 5 ACC games a year. They make the rest of their schedule up. They typically play a pretty a solid to good schedule. This year is a little different. Florida State being down. Miami dropped their game with them last off season, so they weren't able to make that up with another quality game. But most years, Notre Dame puts together a formidable schedule. But, yeah, I wish they were. Where they want to go, ACC tie-in they already have, Big Ten, I don't really care where they end up. But the onus is not on Notre Dame because guess what? Notre Dame is making plenty of money from TV revenue, and now they don't have to share their playoff money. All these other conferences, they got to share playoff money when they get it, which is all part of the deal. Notre Dame gets to get the whole pie to themselves. So it's hard for me to say, Notre Dame, you're in the wrong here. Like, where are these other conference commissioners? Why don't they step up? Why don't they put the onus on Notre Dame and say, hey, man, we'd love to have you a part of this thing, but in order to be so, join a conference. Until that happens, Notre Dame is fat and happy and enjoying the life of independence.
I agree. I agree. Thanks, Tim, for the question. I'm glad that you
Tim.
sent it in. Safe travels to and from Wisconsin, Tim. All right, Dusty, let's talk NFL playoffs before we let you get out of here. I love it, man. I love the lineup of games that we have. By the way, never mind. Breaking news, Quinn Ewers is just declared for the NFL draft.
Okay. I've been waiting to see if that's going to happen. Today is the deadline for players. He said that that's what he's going to do. We take him at his word. I would just say, not saying that he would do this, but not him, but all players have until February 7th.
Ding, ding, ding.
To withdraw their name. We saw with our very own Danny Stutzman last year, him have a change of heart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We saw with Cam Ward last year, the exact same thing. So
we saw it this year with Carson Beck.
Correct. So, I don't know if he's going to do that or not. I just think that, pay attention because that is a possibility and a potential if he decides to do that. But I don't see Quinn Ewers as a first-round pick. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think he's a day 2 pick, and we'll see if he continues to keep his name in the NFL draft. But that's what he told Pete Thamel before they played in that Cotton Bowl there on Friday night.
Here's a question that we're going to have. It's 99 days till the NFL draft. I'm not counting or anything. But here's a question that I'm going to probably ask myself a lot.
Who's going to be our coaches?
Right, exactly. Who's going to coach Cowboys and the Raiders? But what will this quarterback class look like? Because it seems like for now there's a clear 1 and 2, Sanders and Cam Ward, and teams will have them in a different order. But I think 3 is going to be fascinating because I think after Jalen Milroe tests at the Combine, I think that he's going to be a guy that people are going to Anthony Richardson him. They're going to be like, oh, my gosh, I can fix him. I can make him better, more consistent. I love Jackson Dart. But I don't know how he's going to test. I thought Quinn Ewers might test okay, but then I talked to a few more people like, no, he ain't going to test well. So I don't know, Dusty. I'm going to be real fascinated to see what that number 3 quarterback is going to look like after Sanders and Ward.
I agree with you. I think Jalen Milroe is going to wow at the Combine. He's going to interview well because I've sat with him multiple times. He's going to interview very well. He's going to run really fast, whether it's at Indy or at his pro day. He is fast. He is explosive as heck. The acceleration from him is wow. With the ball in his hands, one of, I'd say, a top 5 most explosive player in college football this season. And that they're look, I believe I just saw something the other day of the teams left in this NFL playoff we're going to watch this weekend. What do we have? 8 teams left. I think 7 of the 8 are kind of quarterbacks with mobility. Like that is a thing. It's not something you don't have to be just a dynamic athlete, but you've got to have some mobility about you. And teams are leaning more into that. I do question just the consistency as a passer, and not just as a passer, but I think he's got some blind spots in looking at coverage. If you really look at and evaluate his film, I honestly put Jackson Dart in that 3 hole right now. I think there's a lot to like with Jackson Dart. He is a really good athlete. He's got some toughness to him. The experience, a 3-year starter at Ole Miss. He had some struggles early on, then took much better care of the football the last 2 years. He's got a really good arm, throws it well on the move. He's going to Mobile at the Senior Bowl. I think he's got a chance to really improve his stock in Mobile in February at the Senior Bowl. And then, Quinn Ewers, I think, would start to come in after that. What worries me about Quinn Ewers is pocket presence. I think could really use some work. He throws – ball jumps out of his hand. He's got a real quick release. He throws some different arm slots. But he doesn't handle pressure very well. And I just don't know his overall pocket presence gets me a little bit nervous. So of those 5 that you threw out there, I would say Jackson Dart's the 3rd for me on my board right now, which I think there's still a long way to go. And these guys, it is a fluid situation that how these guys test, what they're able to do in their postseason games is going to probably have a lot to do with how we slot these quarterbacks. I'll throw another one out there.
Yeah.
I don't know kind of what the stock on him is, but, man, how can you not be impressed with what Kyle McCord did this year?
He was really good.
I mean,
he was really good.
He was excellent in his 1 year at Syracuse. So I would say that'd be another guy that has helped his cause, and I'll be anxious to see kind of what, as we start to work our way into draft season, what it looks like for him as well.
Divisional round Saturday, Texans at Chiefs at 3:30, Commanders at Lions in primetime at 7. Then on Sunday, it's the Rams at the Eagles at 2 o'clock and the Ravens at the Bills. I think everyone – there's some pretty big spreads in every game but one. The Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite over the Texans. The Lions are a 9.5-point favorite over Washington. And the Eagles are a 6-point favorite over the Rams. But I feel like we're all kind of waiting for that Sunday afternoon showdown between the Ravens and the Bills, right? I think that's going to be fantastic.
Oh, it's the creme de la creme, baby. Watch out for the Rams now.
Really?
I'm just saying, that pass rush the other night, dude, 9 sacks, they were looking ferocious to me the other night. Plus, just I know they're going to be in Philly, but everything that's going on in LA, they're playing. It's just, I'd keep an eye on that game. If they can limit Saquon, who's been virtually unstoppable this season, it would not shock me if they gave the Eagles all they wanted and some. Tough for me to see the Commanders beat Detroit. I think Detroit, I love me some Coach Campbell. The Chiefs, it wouldn't surprise me if that game's closer than the 8.5. It's tough to pick against Kansas City at Arrowhead. But the Ravens-Bills, I said this to Josh off the air. Here's the hot take of the day for you. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Winner of this game on Sunday afternoon, Ravens-Bills, wins the Super Bowl.
Ooh. Josh would like to hear that.
There's your hot take.
Ooh. I like it.
And personally, give me the Ravens. I like this Ravens team. Lamar has been sensational. King Henry and Lamar Jackson, the ability to run the football the way that they have all year. And I think that defense, maybe not one of the all-time Ravens defenses, but I like a lot of the pieces of it. Based off what I see Ravens-Lions, like if I was having to pick it right now, but I think the world champ comes out of the AFC, and I think winners are Ravens-Bills. Winds up winning at Kansas City, gets to the Super Bowl, and wins the whole thing. So we'll see. But that game is going to be freaking awesome, man. And that's the debate. Who's the MVP? Regardless of who wins the MVP, is it Allen? Is it Lamar? Boy, that's high stakes poker on the line there Sunday afternoon in primetime.
Can't wait, man. Safe travels to D.C. on Sunday, Dusty. Can't wait to watch you Monday night. We'll talk to you Tuesday.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Have a great rest of your week, Mr. Plank.
You too. Dusty Dvoracek, every single Tuesday and Wednesday on the Ref. Brought to you by Ylla, Gosney Attorneys at Law. If you've been in a car wreck, don't waste time. Get the help you deserve. Call Rob and Will at 405-800-8080. Or in Tulsa, 918-800-8080. Experience the difference. Get back to life. Get more for your settle.